Welcome to Lonano-thon, a thon. I am your whatever the fuck this is, Q&A master. You can call me the master. Elric Kane. I am from a couple podcasts. For those who don't know me, Brian knows me. I am from the Pure Cinema podcast in Los Angeles, and the Colors of the Dark. I had to think about that for a second for many reasons. Colors of the Dark podcast from Fangoria. I've been in some iteration at Chattanooga Film Festival for the last 3 or 4 years, I think. So big thank you to Chris. I'm most known in that town for puking in Chris's car late one night and not remembering I had met him till the following day. But
Oh
that's
man.
me. That we're not here to talk about me. That's all we're going to do right there. It's out of the way. We are here to talk to Mr. Brian Lonano himself. Now, what was cool, Brian, is that you put in those little, like, kind of not, they were pretty short. You didn't go too in depth on all your films, but you had those little intros throughout. So we don't have to hit quite so chronologically here, I don't think.
Okay, that sounds great. I'd love to jump all over the place because it's all very strange and random.
It is, but I mean, look, okay, so just we know each other a little bit, so we're gonna get playful. If this is your first time jumping on here and you survived watching all those movies in a row, and I don't think that will come as a surprise. It's a fascinating, playful filmography, and we're gonna get into the bonkers of it, I think. But I'm on, just so people understand, I'm in a motel room in Wisconsin. I'm from Los Angeles. I've been on driving for 5 days. There is literally probably no one on this planet that I would bother doing this for. I had no interest. I'm totally burned out from the pandemic and from podcasting through the pandemic. But when you and Chris brought this up to me, I realized, okay, I'm going to put my family on a truck stop for a few hours so I can come and do this, because I love your work. And I have, as you know, from quite early on. Well, not early as I'm discovering, because you've been doing work for so long. But I discovered Crowhand through when I was starting something called the Hollywood Underground Film Festival, and I think I discovered it through maybe the Boston Underground or one of the others that had programmed you. And for me, it was, the cool thing about movies and taste is you often have no idea why you love something or why it stands out apart from other things, especially at an underground type of festival where there can be a lot of outsider work that could pop potentially, but often something just yells and screams Crowhand at you and you can't let it go. So that was the case for me. So that was my introduction. But we're gonna, I want to kind of jump around through a lot of different spots with you. Somewhat, I kind of want to, because of Pure Cinema and my love of just movies, and I know your love of movies, kind of want to talk a little bit about, inspirations as your voice was developing, especially early on. Some of the names I wrote down for myself that might give context for, and then some of them might not be influences on you, but I wrote, Frank Henenlotter is the one I've heard a lot post Gwilliam, which makes a lot of sense. Post Eraserhead, the work of John Waters, Guy Madden, the good Peter Jackson, as in Bad Taste in the Feebles, and Dead Alive or Brain Dead, or it depends on where you are, and then to a lesser extent, but somebody who I think has a similar filmography in a way is Damon Packard, who I don't even know if you're that aware of.
I am. Yep.
LA-based filmmaker. Yeah, somebody whose work is sometimes utterly incredible, and other times I'm like, okay. But these are, and the reason I lump all those guys together just to start is the one quality I love is the handmade quality. They're all handmade films. The director's hand shows, but not in a way that's a bad thing. The scenes show, not in a way that's a bad thing, and that's not usually the case. It's not the case with Hollywood cinema for the main. So let's just jump in with kind of influences and things you loved and things that kind of pushed you to make those first movies.
Well, it's funny you mention all those filmmakers, because I didn't actually know of their existence until I was either like in school or well after school. To my shame, I was familiar with Basket Case because I had the extra the Something Weird Video sampler DVD, which had a trailer for what's in the basket. So I got that when I was working at the Virgin Megastore back in New York. But a lot of my influences, with something like Electrical Skeletal, I would say I was really into like the B movies of like the 50s, like Them and Forbidden Planet, and so it's just various things I had seen, like the Atomic Cafe was an influence on Attackazoids and Attackazoids Deploy. There's of course like Paul Verhoeven stuff like Starship Troopers. That was a big influence on Attackazoids Deploy. Oddly enough, the Battle of Algiers was an inspiration for Attackazoids because I liked how it showed both sides in this, this way that didn't like glorify either side and showed the problems of both sides of that particular battle, I guess. But yeah, it's a very strange gamut of like stuff that inspired me. It was I saw a lot of experimental film and animation, and sort of inspired me to try certain things out. Like for something like 8-Bit Ghost Top, I was inspired by the fish tank ghost effects that you would see in things like Raiders of the Lost Ark or in Poltergeist, particularly that hallway scene where JoBeth Williams sees that giant lumbering monster in the doorway. That was all done as a puppet in a fish tank. So spooky movie television and 8-Bit Ghost Top were inspired by trying to do like ghost puppet effects swimming around in a tank of water. And we do that late at night, and it'd just be like me and one other person filming this stuff. And
so you're the kid who like would see the magic trick, and then you wanted to kind of understand it, and then try it out yourself.
Yeah, pretty much, and try and incorporate it into my own work. I saw like other films like that, like it may have inspired like a one-off thing was like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. The way that looked like obviously had a big influence on Bacchus Attackus, which is the bumper made for the Boston Underground Film Festival. So yeah, it was usually like I was seeing things and I wanted to try those things, but come up with my own sort of like idea to incorporate that aesthetic. So,
how young were you when you started? Like, when did the film bug bite you, and specifically like kind of the genre, sci-fi, horror? Before the something weird stuff comes in, obviously.
Right. Well, I have my 5th grade yearbook picture when I was 10 years old, and it says right there, movie director.
Oh, nice.
10-year-old Brian, looking fantastic.
Yeah.
Wants to be a filmmaker at age 10, and it was that summer I saw Jurassic Park and was just sort of blown away by, what you could do. That was like Star Wars for so many people. Like that was my Star Wars, or this thing is possible, and you're sort of blown away by it. And also like the movie scared my dad, and I liked that it had that effect on him. And like obviously my stuff is nowhere near Jurassic Park, but I like the idea of like evoking a reaction from the audience. And obviously a lot of my later work tends to provoke and evoke reactions from the audience. So a lot of Spielberg and Lucas stuff was in my upbringing. Batman, like a lot of Tim Burton stuff, like Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands.
Well, Tim Burton's handmade stuff I would have put on. I should have put on this list too, right? When I was thinking of the names, because I do see that, and that's what I love about him. Even if he makes 2 or 3 that are just all CG, and I have zero interest in them, then sometimes you'll return back for something like a Frankenweenie, where I love it because it's just like it's not all his hands when I say handmade. But I feel the artist very present, moving things with precision to what they want us to experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't have a camera for like years. I didn't have a camera until I was in high school, and it was like this VHS-C camera. So I would want to try stop motion, but like I didn't have the mechanisms in order to do stop motion, and it's video. So I made it work. It was very clunky, but it helped me get a job working at FAO Schwartz in New York City. I showed this video of these Star Wars figures, and they were like, "Yeah, let's give you a job." So
yeah, where because I since I've met you, I just think of you as Atlanta, right?
Yep.
But that's as long as I've known you. Where were you raised? Where were you from?
I was raised in New York City. I was born in Brooklyn, but raised in Staten Island most of my life.
We're both born in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Look at us. We are the most typical Brooklyn dudes you could ever see. Exactly. That photo of us with Jordan and Seinfeld is a classic. Aronofsky missed out. He's a bitch.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. I did not know that about you, so that's funny. Interesting. So how does Atlanta come in? Were you still there in school, or did you move there much later?
I went to school in New Jersey. We moved to Atlanta because my wife got a job down here, and I stayed up there with the apartment to get it all packed up while she moved down, get a job, get us an apartment and a car, and then a month later I showed up with all of our stuff, and it's been great. It's been a great, I guess it'll be 9 years this summer that we've been here. But I do miss New York from time to time. I do miss like the pizza, and I miss like wall-to-wall movie theaters where you can see everything and anything you want. But Atlanta is Atlanta is getting really, really good with that.
Hmm.
There's lots of opportunities for like 35 millimeter and 70 millimeter screens. So it's finally happening, and it's like within 20 minutes of where I live. So that's awesome.
That's cool. I really liked your tribute to your father on the on the
Cool.
filmography,
Thank
which
you.
I'm sorry for the loss because that must have happened right before quarantine year, I guess. And I bring
Yeah.
it up because I feel like parents in the arts are fascinating. Like my dad died when I was super young, so I kind of didn't even have either the lift up or the push down that people tend to get, right? It's neither. I kind of took that place myself growing up in terms of the art and like wanting to be a filmmaker. But for you, seeing that tribute to your dad, I definitely got the sense that his support, at least, whether they get it or not, you tends to be a little less important with parents than if they're going to support you regardless. But what was the parental influence on you in terms of the making of the art and the kind of support you got to make stuff that is as out there as yours is from frame one? I mean, your stuff isn't like, it's not like you build up to Gwilliam. You're Gwilliaming from day one. You're just maybe less sexual at the start, but you know what I mean? It's like you're right
Yeah.
out the gate. And that's one thing I did, just to mention up top. It's like I really I'm glad I got to see your work like this, because I got to see that, the vision was always there, your world, your particular voice from the first things I'm watching. What changed, I think what crystallized is a better word to put it, with Crowhand and then Gwilliam and then BFF is form. Form is what I think you really found along the way in terms of like what is the correct structure, whether it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes for your particular stories. And I really think those ones, the reason they maybe have popped to the masses, whatever that means, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah. Yeah.
because they found the form, and that's just from practice, right? The ideas and some of the cool stuff was there from the first one. It's just like, okay, now this is the right place for it. This is the dirtiest word, right? And my least favorite word is still content. But if people saw your work and somebody's going, well, the future is content, and then I just showed them Lonano-thon, I'd be like, oh, okay then. I'm cool with that then, as long as it could get as crazy as that. I just don't want it
Yeah.
to be like corporate Facebook ads and
Yep.
prefabricated
I'm right there with you.
shit like that.
My parents were extremely supportive. I'm so thankful for that. When I was 10, like I said, my dad took me to the movies, and I told him right then and there afterwards, I was like, this is what I want to do when I grow up. I want to make films. And, he went out of his way. We lived on Staten Island, and he took me all the way to Astoria to go to the Museum of the Moving Image to go see, because that was a big deal. They bought me books when I was a kid, and he took me to every school, to go visit for college. And my mom was a huge supporter. My mom actually like fabricated some of the puppets and sets with me. She did all the stitching on this character from Casket Climber Insect God for me. And you could see the magic is just, it's a Pop-Tart box
Yeah.
that I cut up. But yeah, she helped with the sets for the first two films. They supported me, all through college, and I'm super thankful. They even attended a few festivals, like early on in my career. They went to the Maryland Film Festival back in 2007, but they couldn't go to all of them, and that's okay too. And he took me all the way down to Cape May to watch my senior thesis play at the Cape May Film Fest. So it meant a lot that they were both so supportive, and I have very fond memories of going to the movies with my dad. And I remember the year they started playing like art house stuff at the United Artists Theater on Staten Island. They like finally started doing that. And we went and saw like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I think that was my first foreign film that I ever saw, like on a big screen. And he also took me to the city. We saw Apocalypse Now Redux, like back in 2001. And my mom and I were like Turner Classic Movie buddies in October. We used to love watching that stuff all the time. But I agree with you in that, what you said about form crystallizing with those particular three films. I think, yeah, that's like a corner turn that happened in my career, so to speak. Like I was feeling things out with different aesthetics and trying certain things, and maybe some stuff didn't quite work, or some stuff did work better than others. But yeah, I agree. Form happens in that period of time, that period from 2014 to 2018, I guess.
Because it's the with your stuff especially, it's the integration of disparate elements. which isn't the norm, right? Most people's filmmaking stuff. That's the only reason I probably would have mentioned Damon Packard as a similar, very different voices, but like a similar kind of artist. You take things that don't necessarily make sense together. Usually, a filmmaker makes either the bonkers green screen shot type movie, or they're making the very realistic movie that happens to have a crazy puppet at the end or something, and you're putting them all together. And I think once you crack the form in the early films, I really liked the one with the attacking. Was it Attackzoids?
Attackzoids,
I
yeah.
was really enjoying that. And again, it's like that one is basically as good as the others. But the form isn't quite as sharp in that way. When you get to those others, you're like, oh yeah, and you don't know whether that's meant to be 2 minutes or longer. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not about being short. This is again the problem with people, and it's the reason why a film Twitter conversation isn't a real conversation about films, right? What I'm saying, people say, oh, it's too long. We both know a 3-hour movie can feel like 10 minutes. You can just breeze by if it's great, and
Yeah.
a 2-minute movie can be painful. So it's not about length. It's really about how you use that time and kind of shape your story. So I think those have come a long way. But more importantly, have you ever watched Gwilliam Alone with Your Mother?
No, but she has told me that she watched it, and I think she just said something like, "Oh, Brian," just very like.
That's the one thing. Sure. I watched Far From Heaven. That probably similar. Yeah, you're going to the movies with your dad. I took my mom to Far From Heaven because I knew she always reminded me of Julianne Moore, and I can't remember what it was, but there's some sort of sex scene or something, and I just felt so strange sitting next to her. And people when we left, they thought we were dating, because I was 20 or something. It just felt, I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've had those moments as well, like not necessarily watching my work, because I think the last time like I watched something with her was probably like 2007 with like Electrical Skeletal when they were at the theater, because I've always sent her links to things. I'm very happy that she really liked my music video for Ruby Bones, the last thing in the retrospective. Yeah, she was like, "Oh, that was so good." So whenever she can like say that she likes something from mine, I'm like, "Yeah, all right."
That's because there's no sex stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And of course, she liked Memorial too. She gets very emotional about it.
Yeah. And I think you're not talking about it, but I think she liked The Devil's Asshole.
Well, maybe. We don't know. I'm pretty happy with that one. All things considered, like on how quickly we had to turn that around, I was very happy with that.
No, that's the fun thing. Like I said, some of these, because also, and it's fun when you contextualize where they were for, whether they're bumpers or whatnot. But they always have that spirit, and I love. Sometimes I don't know because my taste. It's funny. My mom just texted me as I'm talking to you from New Zealand. She knew.
She knows we're talking. Yeah.
Her cheeks were burning. She's very easy to embarrass. So, but she doesn't listen to podcasts, thankfully. But yeah, no. Like looking at some of these and seeing like some of the gags, I never know where your stuff's going. And I think that's one of the reasons I really appreciate it. After all these years of being a cinephile, I love art house cinema. I love European cinema, and then I'll watch The Pit. And I love it, and I know people probably maybe think I joke at a certain, or Fright Night too, but I think what it is those movies do have they use either practical effects or they do something magical infused in the reality of the thing you're watching.
Yeah.
That it's not predictable, and I think I'm so just not. I was not created for the Marvel, Marvel films, all that stuff, fine, but I was not. That's not what I live to discover because I already know where it's going every single beat of the way, and that's kind of the design of the thing,
Yeah, I agree. It's fun to discover. Like it always like sets my brain on fire when I see either some new restoration or some new film that's doing an older sort of aesthetic, and they're really trying to make it look a certain way. And I really appreciate when filmmakers swing for the fences with things like that, not just in how they look, but also like what they're trying to do. I've been a champion of Southland Tales since I first saw it. Like I was never like a convert. I knew like this is a mess, but I love that this is a mess because I just really appreciate like when filmmakers do that. They go swinging and they take risks. And I think about that a lot when I make my own work, especially if like there's something that was somewhat successful like Crowhand. And I'm like, the next one's Gwilliam. Are we sure this is the right way to go? And sure enough, it was. And same with BFF Girls. I'm going to be a little more ambitious and I'm going to swing for the fences even more. So I think
Well, that's
about
what
like
Crohan
filmmakers
does.
like that.
It delivers beat to beat. It ups the ante every time you cut back to him, right? In terms of just structure. There's no, and then it's the moments, I think, when I'm talking about unpredictability, the parts that win me over, where it goes from being, oh, this is fun, that you could have seen this streaming something just between cartoons or whatever, to brilliant, is like when, you know, he's bleeding all over and then she's just taking a photo of him or something. And it's just a quiet moment, and that, I feel like you have those through every single one, just where I think, like, even in The Devil's Asshole, just when I think it's gonna, he's like, the devil's come out and his head pops out and he's spitting on her, and then she's like kind of talking him down about his own sexuality. It's just, there'll be this little tonal shift, and I do think Henry Lauder had that at times, but his tended to be more his was just kind of one tone the whole time, but it was a bonkers tone the whole time. But I really think that's what's great. And, you know, one of the, we'll come back to it in a sec, but one of my most fun rewatches today, because I'd only seen BFF Girls once when we were all with William Mahaffey's place, I think right before a Knoxville Film Fest, and I really liked it. But watching it again now, I realize just it's really an incredible short. Like the things you're fusing together, it's brilliant. It's as good as all the rest. I just hadn't seen it in a while, and Jessica's great. Great to see her acting in that too.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
It was really fun. But I do want to go. So let's go. Well, like I said, we're jumping around. I wanted to talk about Gwilliam a little bit, because Gwilliam is where I, you know, Crowhand made me notice you. Gwilliam is where we fucked, right? This is where we are conjoined. It wasn't in a real sense, you know, we had different rooms at William's house. But there's something about Gwilliam that is so wrong, and I don't know why. I just instantly fell in love with this movie. And again, I think it's partially because of the build up to, oh, what am I watching? Okay, it's that kind of movie. And now I know you had a short stint in jail, that Edmund was somewhat based on you, the Stuart Gordon movie. Some of your
yes.
So some of the inspiration for Gwilliam, I know, came from that time in your life. Maybe we can talk about that a little more in depth, but you know, however personal you want to get. But it's just one of those movies that so many people are going to believe that. It's great. Just slide those in when we can. Your mom's not listening, I hope. But it's something about the use of the puppet, the horror tropes, like playing on the horror tropes, especially when it starts to attack, and that it's just gunning to unbutton him, and the grosser it gets, because I don't seek that kind of stuff out. Usually that's not the kind of thing if you describe that movie to me, I probably wouldn't want to watch it. But by the end of it, there's something pretty emotional. This sounds pretty weird to me, but I'm left with kind of an emotional fragility of the kind of people who are coming out of jail seeking out Gwilliam's service for some reason. So let's just go to the origins of Gwilliam, like where the idea, because I know the idea came, as you said in your pre-thing, it came prior to Crowhand, right?
Yes, it did. It sort of came from a drawing that my brother Kevin did while we were editing 8-Bit Ghost Top, and he drew this, he was looking at someone's photo of their kid, and he like drew it, but he drew it all messed up and it looked like a goblin man. So we named him Gwilliam because we thought that was like a gross name to say. I found out years later that it's actually a surname. I had no idea it was actual real name. So we had this idea, and you know, this sort of like Travis Bickle character prowling at night looking for action, and he comes across Gwilliam, and originally it was supposed to be like the worst blowjob and a lot more traumatizing, but it was my wife Tori who said like it should be like the best, you know, like sort of appearances can be deceiving kind of thing. And as we completed the film, and you know, we were taking out to festivals, you know, when they always ask me like, what's wrong with you, like where'd you come up with this idea, and blah blah blah. And I always say, like, as my stock answer, like I wanted to make a film that like everyone could relate to, and I left it at that, and you know, wait for the awkward laughter. But I mean that in that, like, everyone has some kind of guilty pleasure where they do it, they feel terrible about it, and they swear not to do it again until the next time they're tempted, and then they go and do it. And whether that's like eating a whole jar of Nutella, or you know, watching this trashy movie or this trashy show, or reading some trashy cowboy romance novel or whatever, like everybody has their guilty pleasure, and you know, they all go back to it. So Gwilliam is sort of like the personification of that kind of thing.
Did you always know it was going to push? And I mean, obviously, you said it started as the worst blowjob, but did you always know it was going to be a sexualized sexual story in that way?
Yes, and that is why I withheld from making it for so many years, because I thought like I was trying to establish myself as a different kind of filmmaker, and I didn't necessarily want to go into the sexual realm with my films. Like I saw like, well, leave it to people like David Cronenberg and experts like that who know what they're doing when it comes to sexuality and violence and things like that. But I guess as the as my career continued and Crohan was so successful, my wife was the one who said, I think now is the time to do William, because, this idea of Crohan really resonated with people. And I think it would be a good opportunity to do this one. Because she always thought it was a funny idea. And we always, like, my brother and I always held on to the idea too. And yeah, I guess it was just at that point where we said, I think this is the right time to do it. And I'm quite happy we did it,
Can you imagine? Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just like saying I'm just happy we decided to take the risk. I think it was with the idea of Crohan being such a silly idea and saying like, let's just do it. Like, why not? Like because we as creators, sometimes you're like, oh, what a funny, stupid idea, but you're like, I can't do that. I got to do this thing or whatever, and you sort of like talk yourself out of it. And it was the decision to go forward with Crowhand and say like, no, this is a silly, fun, stupid idea, and we know it's silly, fun, and stupid. So anybody who's going to write a bad review is not really going to hurt us, because it's like, we know it's stupid, so why, so your bullets can't hurt me. And we just decided like, let's take another risk and do William, and then the next one was let's take another risk and do BFF Girls. So
and going all the way
fun.
with ideas, right? Like that's the thing. Anytime I'm teaching, it's like you can't go halfway with your whatever the idea is. When you do, you that's where you really do see compromise, and that's the hardest thing about making anything, right? Every little piece of compromise that tends to sneak up on you ends up on the screen, and then you don't like your own work, right? And that happens to almost everyone anyway, in a way. So I think those two films definitely show that you didn't hold anything back, right? Nothing. I mean, like when the end of the penis is going through the back of somebody's skull, you've gone all the way.
Yep.
Just so if you're ever questioning yourself, you went all the way. William took you to the edge. I was just thinking aloud there while we were talking about, like, when you're talking about Cronenberg, I'm like, if you go through each one of his films and exchange William for one character, like James Spader in Crash, William, right? You just put them in there. Michael Ironside in Scanners, William. Like, what happens to these movies? I want to see all those movies, except maybe M. Butterfly. I don't think William improves that movie even slightly. In fact, it makes me feel kind of wrong saying that, so I'm going to take that one. Anyway, there's no editing here. Very strange. But, William is a film, I'm so glad it traveled. I think it's fun that he's turned back up, as a horror host. I'm a little surprised he hasn't already been picked up for, Shutter syndication to do what the old horror hosts do. I think that would be a lot of fun.
My phone is ready. It's ready and waiting for the call. So,
but there's another part of me that, as much as I like that, there's another part of me that likes him being in the narrative and being special, not just a caricature who will pop up. And part of my thinking there, and this will lead into something I definitely wanted to talk to you about, is the difficulty. Some of this I want to talk about, like work art balance. Like when you're making crazy movies like this, how do you do it? What is the balance? Often for the people who are out there trying to make crazy stuff, so that's one thing I want to come back to. But first, the idea of like your next transition, and it might not be a transition you're looking to make, but making the feature length film, right? Given the success and kind of all these wild and incredible films you've been working on, how difficult have you found your style, your aesthetic, and these stories to maybe either adapting them for a feature length film or just thinking your own? Because I know from watching, I know enough filmmakers and have worked enough to know that you can make great features, right? That's not even in question. I think you could make things that you didn't write and wouldn't have any problem. People probably wouldn't even know it's necessarily the same person. But the person who made these shorts and the voice behind these shorts, right? Keeping that at a feature length, how much have you been toiling with that, thinking about that? Or how much of it is just like each idea is its own world that you just explore whatever the right form was?
It's a bit of both. I've struggled with the adaptation of some of my short films into features, and I just sort of lose interest in it because as much as like it would be fun to do something like a Gwilliam feature, when I start thinking about the world building and like where did he come from, like I know where he came from, but I don't necessarily need to tell everybody that. Or the crow totem, like I love that this person just finds this crow totem, because that's what happened to me in real life. I came across this thing on the ground, and you know, to find out like, oh, somebody made it and we have to go find this person and blah blah blah, like I just sort of lose interest. There has been an idea that I tried to adapt into a feature that's like an original. It's not a short, and it just doesn't work for me. And I've actually decided to go the route of making it into a short as opposed to a feature. But yeah, it's been a few times where I've tried to adapt, you know, shorts I've made into features. One was Attackazoids, Martian Precursor, Gwilliam. The only one that I really saw that it had potential, not necessarily for a feature, but just for more episodes, was BFF Girls.
Big time.
Like, because I definitely like wanted to explore more things with those characters and have more monsters and more issues that, you know, kids have when they're growing up, you know. So
that felt like Adult Swim already. I mean, it already felt like something that would have just appeared at 2 a.m., you know, and the little stinger you put on the end, definitely to me, as soon as it ended, rewatching it today, I was like, yeah, this should be, you know, a short form series for sure. And I agree. I don't think it needs to be a feature, but as a continuing series. I mean, are there going to be any features anymore anyway? I mean, you know me, I'm the ultimate feature guy. Like, I only just love feature films, but that form definitely seems it's going to be the less popular, you know, in the coming years, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I do love making an idea and having it exist just in a short, you know, form. I've done it for the past 15 years, and I'm very content, you know, after sort of talking myself or psyching myself out of like not adapting something into a feature. I'm like, no, I think Gwilliams does very well as its own thing. I know there's Gwilliams Tips, but it doesn't, like, you know, it's not a sequel per se. It's just another film that has him in it. But you know, it's great that I have him, and that, you know, if I wanted to, I could always make another Gwilliam short. But I like not just whoring him out all the time, you know, because then he's not as special, you know.
I kind of want, a different blowjob every year. It just comes out at some point.
Yeah.
Every Father's Day, there's a Gwilliam short every single year. Different dude, different story. But no, I think that's smart. But I do think, you know, I don't know about for you, but for me, a long time was the problem of a co-writer cracked it for me, like bringing in somebody else, because I always had the ideas and the story, you know, but to have somebody to also bounce it out to help flesh out. And sometimes it can be as simple as that. For some, I think you're right with a lot of these shorts, they're meant to be shorts, but I do want to see, you know, and you're one of the few people on this planet that I'd be excited to help at some point, to be like, oh, how do we help make a feature out of, you know, your world? Because I just, you know, I feel like those movies aren't really getting made anymore. We can talk about something weird a little bit. Like, you know, we did an episode of Pure Cinema on it not long ago. It was a big deal to me when I was young, seeing the Something Weird logo, because it meant I was no longer in the safety of what movies promise. Movies, in big quote marks, that I went to the movie theater for was completely safe. Like, I never saw anything, you know, maybe Tequila Sunrise, but, you know, nothing that really shattered the taboos of my world. And then I suddenly would see this logo come up, and it could have been anything. It could have been a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie where someone's cutting out a tongue that with painted red blood on the ground. It could be Psyched by the 4D Witch, which really, I was like, is this even a movie? Like, I didn't even know if I could call it a movie. It had a running time, and it had aesthetics, you know? And that's what I loved about that label, and kind of how things ended up there. But for you, yeah, was it just through that sampler that you kind of learned about the oddities, treasures?
Yeah, that was one of them. That, and going to Video, which was a video store in Morristown, which was the town over from where I went to school. That's where I first rented Eraserhead. And my friend who was first my teacher, Vince Guagenti, he turned me on to a lot of great films. He turned me on to Vincent Price and Peter Lorre and films by those actors. And you know, I was excited when I could come to him with some discovery. Like the extra weird sampler had so many great. I remember one of the first ones on it was like the erotic adventures of Zorro, and that's like one of the funniest trailers I've
I
ever
haven't seen
seen.
that one, but
I haven't seen it either. I've just seen the trailer, but I should revisit the uh, the sampler and watch it because I remember names like the Curious Doctor Hump, which I just
I was just
saw.
about to say that. That was one of the
Yeah,
ones I remember being. I've never been so excited to see a movie in my life when I saw that title and Ant Timpson, who did the New Zealand Fest, he wrote up about it, how great it was. I went and I didn't like it at all when I was young. It totally was over my head. I was like, "What the hell is this movie?"
yeah, yeah.
But it's
I
a great
enjoyed
title.
it quite a
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. They did a really cool pull quote about it crossing like Mario Bava and Doris Wishman, and I was like, that
Hmm.
sounds awesome. I'm down,
Yeah.
and I'm excited about all the. I've been trying to get into Doris Wishman's films. Like I
Yeah.
just watched Diary of a Nudist and Nude on the Moon, so I'm excited for those box sets whenever those come out. But yeah, college was great, and then after college, I went to Kim's Video, and I
Yeah.
bought so many films that I had never seen
Do you
before.
remember what
Just
the
by
first film you bought from Kim's was?
Oh gosh.
You're guessing.
Well, I remember there was like a few bouts where we went to multiple Kims. We went to the one in St. Mark's Place, but we also went to the one on Christopher Street. I remember we bought Werewolves on Wheels and Night of the Hunter there. I can't remember some of the other ones we bought, but they were also super expensive. And I was like, whatever, I'm single and I have a job. I'm going to waste all my money buying these. And I kind of still did. But now I just have to get them online, or if I'm lucky, go to a shop that has them and buy them like in person, which is always exciting. But yeah, I'm drawing a blank now. But I definitely remember Werewolves on Wheels and Night of the Hunter were two DVDs that we definitely bought when we were at Kim.
Yeah, like it's become so easy to buy what we want. And I know part of that's being an adult, but part of it is Amazon. Like I look up the film I want, I push a button and it comes to my house.
Yeah.
When going into Kim's, I only went a couple times, but it was coming from New Zealand. And I remember buying Don't Torture a Duckling, having never seen it, having just heard about it, and seeing even the cover and feeling like I was buying a piece of treasure. Like it felt like
Mhm.
Indiana Jones putting the thing in your bag and getting away and you had to wait till you got all the way home to put it.
Yep.
It's an incredible feeling that obviously our generation, I still view myself as just so lucky to have been part of a video store generation. Like and I'm not saying to younger people that they're unlucky, because there's you have everything at your fingertips in a very different way. But for
Mhm.
me, I loved that period so much, so I know what that, and I think that can fuel the passion in a different way, and I think it can fuel the sickness in a way too. And sickness is not a positive way, that all, like Truth Post says, all film lovers are sick people. I agree. I think they are all filling an incredible hole in themselves, but everyone has it. I'd rather fill it
Yeah.
with movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Because movies are
Exactly.
possibilities, right? They're possibilities to worlds, possibilities to other ideas. And I think maybe that's circling back to you, is probably what I appeals to me. Like you're showing me a world, you're showing me a vision. Each film to me could kind of coexist in its own world, like in the Burton-esque way. Like I don't feel like, I mean, a BFF characters could have a Gwilliam appear in that storyline easily, right? Any of these things I think could pop up in a way, and to me that's refreshing and maybe a little rare now, for as somebody who's always on the hunt for kind of bonker stuff. If you are like us doing that, the last place to go is always the Hong Kong. You go to the Hong Kong cinema and you suddenly go, oh, there's still
Yep.
hundreds of crazy 80s horror movies, or utterly wild.
Yeah, there's so many that I haven't even seen, and the gateway one for me was the Boxer's Omen.
Yeah.
But I've
Oof,
seen
yeah.
lots of others that it just get just as crazy. It's the cat. The cat is incredible.
I
I don't
love
know
the
if you
cat
know
so much.
that one.
Oh no, no!
Yeah.
I've been talking about the cat quite a bit this year, because all his films, his films, and actually that one maybe reminds me tonally a little bit of your work too, like because it does take some big turns, has big swing after big swing. You got an
Hmm.
alien cat, you've got a Terminator 2 ripoff, you've got, like, it's such a fun movie. And
Yeah.
he's movie after movie that I've seen of his. I've watched a couple others, Ghost Snatchers I just watched, which was really fun, and obviously Story of Ricky is coming out finally on Blu-ray, and then they're like you said, they're wild big swings that actually deliver a moment. I think, from Crowhand on, I go, okay, where's that? There's that big moment, like where there's a big blood thing or killing someone with a claw. It delivers on, even if the aesthetic is at times lo-fi. It then does something that will surprise you or take you back because the effect delivered. And I think
Hmm.
that's, to me, that's something that's enough for me often. I'm a cheap date. But I want to circle back to work life, how you balance these things. It's a struggle for everyone, obviously. It's a no-brainer. There's no easy way. I don't know what the industry is, for most people who don't have, whose parents aren't paying their way to live in Los Angeles and not work. Outside of that, everyone has to do a side hustle. So how, from how to fund a short to how you're supporting yourself versus, how do you find that work-life balance? Does it get in the way with your creativity, or have you kind of found a way to make it work?
Well, I've always had a job, with the exception of last year where it's furloughed for 6 months,
Mm.
because a lot of people were. But since I graduated school, like I had steady work and was able to balance making something on the side, either like weekends or literally like before I go into work, I would be editing, or after work, I would be editing. And, in the evenings, I'm storyboarding. I'm storyboarding like a few projects right now. And, you just find the time. Sometimes like some days are harder than others, like sometimes like I can write a script really fast, but then there are other times where I struggle. And it's just, I try to take it, slowly, but I do sort of keep festival deadlines in mind where I think about like I would like to get something completed in order to submit to this festival or something like that. So sometimes that keeps me like chugging forward. When we did Quarantine last year, it was just like as soon as like the pandemic hit and all my friends were out of work, I was like, well, let's do something, let's make something. So that was like a lot of fun, and we actually got that done in a month, and then it got to play at a few festivals. But I also am a person who needs to be like working on something. I can't just sit still, and unfortunately, like the self-doubt always starts creeping in, and you need to have a distraction to work on, to do something about. So I work on a lot of stuff. So right now I've got like there's like 3 to 4 film projects I'm trying to work on, and then there's like a writing thing that I'm doing with another writer actually, which
Cool.
is cool. And but yeah, for the past 15, 16 years, I've been able to find a balance where I can work, and then I can, have meetings with my friend Blake, or, my friend Gary, or my brother Kevin, and talk about like what project we're going to work on. And then we prepare, we make the schedules and the shot lists, and then we just plan. Like it's almost like a vacation. Like I'm going to do this month or this weekend and get it done. And that's how we did BFF Girls. We got it shot in 2 weekends, and then there was like a pickup day in like a month later. So you just make it work. You just do what you can to make it work. But a lot of my films I've funded myself, which is probably why they look so cheap. But there were a few that were crowdfunded, BFF Girls, The Transmission, and Gwilliam. But I think I'm going to avoid that route just because it's a lot of work to try and get that money. So thankfully, we could probably fund the projects ourselves. But there is one project that I might get some funding on, which I'm excited about. So yeah, just do what you can. Some of my budgets like go anywhere between like $200 to like $10,000. That's about how much I cost as far as my movies go.
Of the people you work with on a day-to-day basis, how many of them have had a thon named after them? I'm just curious. So when you walk in there like John Wayne on Monday and just kind of point to them and like this, knowing that you've had a thon, and I don't know if they've had any thons. Has Eileen had a thon? I don't think so. No,
Eileen has not had a thon. No, at first I was like a song. I was like, I don't know if I have any songs.
Like William Girdler thong.
Yeah, yes, exactly. No, not many songs, but my friend Blake did have like a nice evening of his short films like some years ago at the Plaza in Atlanta. So he's had a retrospective.
I just want to quickly weigh up a nice evening versus having a thon. Very different. Yes. A nice evening is very nice, pleasant, I would say, but it's no thon with your name in it. So how did the thon? You like because I don't knowing you and knowing your films and loving them the way I do, I have no clue what the world thinks. Like I don't have any pulse of how your films are outside of my brain. So my brain, you're a mainstream Hollywood director.
Thank
This is
you.
the norm to me because that's how my strange mind works.
I like that.
But the fact that they are being all grouped together feels a little like you're dying, but I hope not. But also a lot like, because it does feel like the end, or you're going to win that like posthumous award or something. But it does feel like a turning point. It feels like, hey, this is a group of films. This is a body of work, and now that, or it's a great way to get people who don't know about it to know about it, of course. But also, like, it does feel like there's going to be maybe a shift or another level coming or something. Is that a pressure I'm just putting on you?
No, believe me, I've thought about this as well. I thought about the "Am I dying soon?" kind of thing.
You're not.
Yeah, but yeah, I was thinking about this a lot actually, and it's like, God, this is like 15 years of my work, and it's like all that work, and it's like not even 2 hours long. It's just funny when you put all the films together, and it totals that. It's like that's my life's work, but. I've
But it's
thought
all
about it
you.
a
It's
lot.
all you, man. And that's what's so cool about it. It's like, it doesn't need to be more than 2 hours. It's all you. I see so many shreds of things that I love, and moments, and just playfulness. Innocence is a word that might surprise somebody in a way to your work, but it's so innocent. Even William feels like an innocence movie, and in a way that's not cheesily pure hearted, but like it does. It feels like I would watch these movies and know you're a good guy, just because there's something in them that is searching for something. But they're not they're not like the dirties when we see these movies, from something weird or somebody slapping someone around. There's a different
Yeah,
motivation.
yeah.
This isn't that. And BFF Girls maybe the most I see, the most pure hearted, and just such a playful, fun thing. So
Well, I
yeah.
agree. I agree. I think that's an apt, assessment of my work, because people have said like your films are, so dirty or gross or offensive or whatever, but like you're such a nice guy or whatever. It's just funny like that. I don't know, I don't know where it comes from, but
Well, I mean, look at David Lynch. I mean, he's my favorite artist, right? Favorite
yeah.
filmmaker, favorite artist. And again, I would say the same about him. His films go maybe darker, obviously Blue Velvet, but I still think they're the work of an innocent
Hmm.
mind trying to understand the dark world of the adult, the dark world that that you're forced to, as a kid, encounter. You have no choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, when you say make something relatable like William, that I think is what part of why it's also relatable, is because yeah, you related it. Even you relating the meaning of William was making me laugh inside, because you were taking such an innocent route of describing, saying, well, maybe it's like that donut you're not allowed. And I'm thinking, well, everyone has a sexual thing that they maybe never get to even do or talk about to
Right.
another human.
Yeah.
And so my mind's going to a much racier place, and you're coming in here with donuts.
Well, yeah, because that's my guilty pleasure. It's just eating too much,
Yeah.
and you always feel bad afterwards. And you're like, nah, but the donuts are on sale again. So
Yeah,
that's not
yeah,
right.
they are. No, I've gained so much weight in the pandemic because all I eat is whatever my kids don't eat, and so I'm literally eating kid food all pandemic, and literally, yeah, it's all over. I don't even get a thon, and it's all over for me. So at
Uh,
least you get a thon.
well, you have a pretty kick-ass podcast. Well, you have
Uh,
multiple podcasts, so that's pretty awesome.
yeah, that's just talk. Um,
Uh,
like we're doing here. But I mean, so what do you? And I know you just talked about the multiple films, but will this grouping of work travel after seeing it here? Do you think this is this? I mean, from what you can say, or is this the only time anyone's ever going to get to see this body of work all together like this? Do you think?
so I would love it to. For now, like Chris just, approached me. It was last year, I think, during Frightening Ass Film Festival when Kornstein was playing, and he had mentioned in passing on the Discord channel about it would be great to have a retrospective. And I'd be like, I'm down. And then I sidebarred with him. I was like, hey, if you're serious about that, I would love to do that. And he followed up with me, later, like not too long ago, and he said, yeah, we would love to do that. So the turnaround for this was really fast, but I would certainly love to, send it to more places. I just don't know how I would go about that. Like Chris invited me to do this, so I don't know if I can invite myself to other
Well, I don't
festivals.
think you'll need to. Like, I mean, I think that's what's cool. It might never happen, but as we both know, once you get a film into a festival somebody talks about that's how I actually found Crowhand, right? I didn't just blindly go through hundreds of submissions. I was starting a little festival that has happened exactly one time. So every 10 years I plan on doing another one. That's the kind of motivation I have for festivals. But I found it because another festival had found it. And so the way festivals talk to each other or look at each other's things, it could travel. And like, sidebar, what Chris does with this festival, I think there's a reason all of us are willing to go out of our way to help any way we can, is because we see what a labor of love it is to him. Speaking of fathers, we see how supportive his father has been with him for his dreams, and I love that, and that translates, I think, to all of us. There's so many people who I think would kind of go to the end. So for having somebody like that see in your work the worth of putting it all together, I think other people will too, based on that.
Well, that would be awesome, and I agree. I love Chris's enthusiasm, and they're helping one another make this festival happen. It's so you feed off that enthusiasm, and they're both so generous with their time, and I am truly indebted that they invited me to do this. It's really something. It's really humbling.
Kind of, this will sound more like the starting question than than towards the end, but speaking about film festivals, talk to me about the first time you saw any of your work screened in a public festival type thing, not at home and not at school, but where other people that you did not know got to see it, and how, in my mind, it's very easy to get hooked on that feeling.
Well, it's funny because the very first one was the worst one that I ever had. I was in Los Angeles. I was in Long Beach at this festival. It was a great festival, and they were so nice and so welcoming to me. For a number of years, my work played there, and the DVD that I had didn't play on their player, and I was panicking because that was like the summer I graduated. I spent all this money to go out there, and it's not playing. And somebody had a portable DVD player, and they put it in, and it worked. So there's like 4 people hunched over this computer watching my film play. And
which film was it of these films?
No, it was called Pomo Tohu, which is called postmodern toilet humor. That was our very, very first one. I could send you the link to that
one. Oh, wait, you held out on this thon? It didn't even make the thon cut?
that's yeah. Well, there was a few films that didn't make the cut. There were some bumpers that didn't make it in, and my thesis film Brobot didn't make it in, and then Pomo Tohu, which was made in like 2004, so that was probably the worst. And you would think that would be like, well, I'm never going to submit to festivals again. But all I did was I just got better discs made of my next films. And then we went back the next year and we won for experimental and music video for Casket Climber. And so thankfully, the worst one I ever had was the first one. It wasn't even a bad experience, but there was another instance where 8-Bit Ghost Top played in this really awesome block of shorts, and they were all like WTF shorts, and everyone up there got a question except for me, and I was like, I just felt like a dope just standing up there. But to be fair, the last film in the block was Ari Aster's The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, and he was there. So like I am standing here talking about, like, not talking about my stupid ghost movie, and Ari Aster's like 2 people down talking about The Strange Things About the Johnsons.
Which is pretty bonkers as well, yeah.
It's a pretty bonkers movie, yeah. I explained that film to Tori, and she couldn't stop laughing. And when we found out it was playing again at the New York Film Festival, we went out of our way to go see it again, and we were the only ones laughing watching that movie because it's so twisted and it's so funny too.
Yeah, like all his work, it has humor. Like Hereditary, at the scariest moments, you're laughing if you get it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's fun about it. Yeah, but you did have. Do you remember the first, like, where it played great? Was it the one where you won the award, or was there a follow up to the worst?
I think, let's see, one of the. Well, I feel like when I did something that like made people laugh, I feel like that was like the first moment where I was like, yes, I'm really excited. Because every time something of mine played prior to Crowhand, I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't know how this is going to play. I don't know if it's going to get applause or people are going to mock it or whatever. But I guess once like Crowhand hit, and I knew it had those funny beats, like it was really cool to see.
And
But
it's so short, right? It's muscular in that
yeah,
way that people don't understand. Like when students all the time, I always kind of say, look, sometimes a festival programmer is looking for something that can fit between three other things and changes the gear or the tone completely.
yeah,
And that is that perfect film that you could place anywhere at any time and wake people up, or
yeah,
kind of feel the
exactly.
heartbeat.
Exactly. But probably one of my favorites was BFF Girls Playing at Knoxville, just because
Mm.
the audience was so clicked in, and it was like one of my favorite all-time movie-going experiences watching. But also like back in 2007, seeing Electrical Skeletal play in an actual movie theater, because I had seen my stuff play at like convention centers or like ballrooms and things like that, but I had never seen it play in a movie theater, and that was the first time, and I was just so elated to be like in seats and having popcorn and like watching your film on a big screen. It was so exciting.
Well, I mean, work like this, and I mean, I guess that's kind of the point of this. It's in your head, and you've found ways to translate these ideas that could just, for a lot of people, they might have a crazy idea like this and they never translate it. They never, a funny joke that happens in their brain that's so absurd, then they let it die, right? But you actually take that and you have to translate it onto the screen to then play it for people who then are totally tapped into it and laughing. It legitimizes this crazy Joker idea you had in a way that very few other art forms do that. Stand-up comics probably get that direct, quick feedback as well, but in film it's a bigger risk, I think, because it's a dance. So
Yeah.
I think you should be super proud of seeing this work together. It's exciting. We're recording this obviously prior to us knowing anyone's seen it yet. They will have just finished watching when they're watching this, but it's fun to think of that somebody who may never have seen any of your films might be watching all of these back to back. Is so bonkers to me, and kind of a wild night of movies, which is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I hope a lot of people get to watch it and get to enjoy it, and I'm sure there'll be a plethora of Letterboxd reviews soon after, letting me know if my movies are crap or not.
Well, you were smart to start with Crowhand because it's a way of saying, hey, it's kind of like what I hate about Hollywood movies at the moment, where they go, oh, here's the scene where the person kills someone at the hour 30 mark, but I'm going to put it in the first scene just because the movie's boring.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, I thought it was a really good move to be like, here, I'm just going to show you one of the highlights coming down the track so you know what you're in for, because obviously
Mm-hmm.
quality, if somebody just watches your very first thing, they're going to think, oh, it's all going to be of this aesthetic or something. But I just like that you delivered with like creatures and designs that there's some ghost stuff in that blew my mind, and just it's the mixture of totally different forms, whether it's something suddenly feels like a hand-drawn ghost on the image, or mechanical creatures that you've created. To me, it's just playful and fun, and I'm excited to see chapter 2. Maybe this is just Thon 1, and Thon 2, which could be a
Yeah,
couple years from now, and you'll have another 10 things made, will be
Volume 2.
or whatever the future holds. But the main thing is, yeah, I'm glad we got to do this, and talk a little bit. We could do this again sometime, anytime.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much for. This is exactly what I was hoping for. I was hoping to have such a
You're
smart
the only
guy
person
talk
who would
about my
ever hope
films.
for me in a motel room to talk about their work. But if I can make one little dream come true.
You did. My dream has come true. Thank
But
you,
no,
Howard.
I miss you, and I miss the whole crowd for both Chattanooga and Knoxville festivals. It's funny that probably my two favorite festivals in America happen to be in Tennessee, which is just bizarre, and
Yeah,
so close together. But they are, because I think everyone there, seems to really love um, these movies. So, hopefully we can be down there again all together, and I look forward to seeing your next piece of work. And I want to see this first film. You better send it to me.
I will.
If you don't hear back from me ever again,
I know why.
there's your answer. Toilet humor. Really, really good to see you, man, and I'm super proud of you and excited for you. This is really cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you to Chris and everybody at Chattanooga for putting this together. I really appreciate it. And thank you to people who watched, and thank you to everybody who's worked on my films. I love you all. Thank you.
Yeah, this was the best I've ever had. Thank you.